All right, let's jump right into this explainer and decode the hidden psychology behind your everyday emotions and behaviors. Have you ever wondered why you do the things you do? Why certain habits or little quirks feel so deeply ingrained in your personality, even when society is constantly telling you they're flaws? Well, today we are drawing from the really fascinating catalog of the Psychology About You channel to explore exactly that. We're going to look at the real data and the psychological insights behind your most confusing traits. And trust me, you might just find out that what you thought were your biggest weaknesses are actually your greatest strengths.
So here's our psychological roadmap for today. First, we'll decode your everyday mind, then look at the power of independence, dive into the quiet and deep thinkers, explore the echoes of childhood, and finally, uncover the hidden strength of empathy. Let's get to it. Section 1. Decoding your everyday mind, and what we call the Polymath Advantage. Okay, question for you. Do you talk to yourself when you're alone? Do you overthink literally everything? Or maybe you have an absolute graveyard of unfinished projects? If you're nodding your head right now, psychology actually says you should stop apologizing for these habits immediately. It's so easy to beat ourselves up for constantly talking out loud to an empty room, or having that one closet or chaotic folder on our computer that we pretend just doesn't exist. But listen, these aren't signs of a scattered mind. They're actually indicators of a highly active, constantly processing intellect. You know, society loves to push this idea that you have to pick a single niche, right? To be a master of one and just stick to the typical 9-to-5 grind. But psychology points to something else entirely. It's called the M-shaped polymath. Basically, this means you are geared for a unique portfolio-style career path where you draw from multiple deep interests instead of just one. So if you can't stick to just one thing or you have too many diverse interests, you really don't lack discipline. You actually possess the polymath advantage. Your brain is literally wired to connect seemingly unrelated ideas. Feeling like 10 lifetimes wouldn't be enough to do everything you want? That's not a lack of focus. It means you're built for an M-shaped future, where adaptability and diverse knowledge are your actual superpowers. Honestly, when you stop apologizing for not sticking to one thing, you become unstoppable. Moving right along to Section 2, the power of independence and those high mindset traits. All right, do you hate being told what to do? Do you rarely, if ever, text first? You might feel like you're isolating yourself, or maybe people call you difficult, but psychology suggests you actually possess incredibly rare autonomy traits. This isn't just about being stubborn. It's a deep-seated psychological need to govern your own life and protect your inner peace. Here's the reality of the situation. Things like treating your birthday just like any other normal day, never taking selfies, or easily cutting off toxic people, those aren't signs of detachment. They are signs of fierce boundaries and high-level independent mindset. If your favorite color is black or you don't text first, society might label you as cold. But the truth? You just aren't easily manipulated, and your sense of self-worth isn't tied up in external validation or social rituals. And that brings us to this profound point from our sources. If you don't need anyone, you might be society's biggest threat. When you stop living for others and absolutely stop needing their validation, you become a force of nature. A person who is completely self-reliant is basically immune to manipulation. You're a threat to traditional social structures because you simply cannot be controlled by the usual expectations. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. Section 3. The quiet and deep thinkers. Finding strength in silence.
So, do you love staying at home and only keeping a super small circle of maybe one or two real friends? Society loves to frame a lack of a bustling social life as a negative, right? Like it's something that needs to be fixed. We're constantly told that being an extrovert is the ultimate ideal. But let's actually look at the data from the Psychology About You channel to see how people really feel about this.
Just look at the sheer scale here. 1.8 million views. The source material detailing the rare traits of having few or no friends reached nearly 2 million people. To put that into perspective, that proves just how universally resonant this lonely feeling actually is. Millions of people are quietly living this reality, seeking validation that their preference for solitude is completely 100% normal. And psychology backs this up. It reveals that hating small talk, despising crowded places, or keeping just one real friend isn't antisocial at all. It's actually often a marker of deep thinkers and an exceptionally high IQ. You observe deeply before you speak. You value deep, meaningful connections way more than a wide, shallow network. So it's not anxiety keeping you at home. It's a deliberate psychological preference for quality over quantity.
And this is exactly why society should fear the quietest person in the room. Quiet behaviors force toxic people to just disappear, making the silent observer the most formidable person around. Think about it. When you don't speak, you listen, you analyze, and you see all the little things others miss. Toxic people thrive on dramatic reactions, and the quiet person gives them absolutely none of it. All right, moving on to Section 4, the echoes of childhood and the origins of independence. Enduring a lot in childhood, or essentially having to raise yourself, often forges the absolute rarest kinds of strength. Being the black sheep means you were the one who questioned the family dynamics. And yeah, that's incredibly difficult, but it leaves you with this profound, incredibly unique resilience. Whether you were raised by Gen X parents, grew up as a middle child, or maybe you just grew up way too fast, these early environments heavily dictate your hyper-independent habits today. I mean, if you had to be the adult in the room when you were just a kid, well, of course you hate being told what to do now. You developed self-reliance purely out of necessity, and that later blossomed into the fierce autonomy we talked about earlier. And the engagement on this topic is staggering. 745,000 views. The source material covering the lifelong effects of feeling unloved as a child shows that understanding these childhood echoes is absolutely key to healing. Nearly 750,000 people resonated with that specific pain. Acknowledging that these experiences shaped your current quirks is really the first major step in turning those survival mechanisms into mindful superpowers. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the hidden strength of empathy and the emotional mind. So do you cry when you're angry rather than when you're sad? If you do, or if you find yourself remaining inexplicably calm during really intense arguments, psychology has a pretty surprising explanation. It can be so frustrating, right? Wanting to yell, but instead the tears just start falling? Or being in a raging argument and feeling completely detached from the whole thing. Here is the key takeaway. Crying easily is absolutely not a weakness. Crying when you're angry or easily shedding tears actually signals a very high level of emotional processing. Your body is experiencing this overwhelming surge of emotion, and crying is literally the neurological release valve. It's a sign of profound emotional depth, not fragility. However, this extreme empathy definitely has a flip side, especially for people who never get angry outwardly or who constantly people please just to avoid conflict. Remaining completely calm in an argument might mean you have excellent self-control, sure, but being too kind can sometimes mask a much deeper, silent struggle. And we really have to recognize this, the dark side of kindness. Sometimes being the absolute nicest person in the room is actually a trauma response, born from childhood experiences. If you grew up in a volatile environment, you quickly learned that being hyper-agreeable and hyper-empathetic kept the peace. You are essentially manipulating your environment to maintain safety. It's a brilliant survival strategy, honestly, but it can be exhausting if you don't even realize you're doing it. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to look closely at your everyday habits, from talking to yourself to keeping a small circle, from your deep empathy to your fierce independence. Are your strange quirks really flaws, or are they undiscovered superpowers? Instead of fighting them, ask yourself how you can leverage these rare psychological gifts moving forward. You aren't flawed, you're simply wired differently. So the real question isn't, how do I fix myself? The question is, now that you know these are your hidden superpowers, what are you gonna do with them?